So Sal, thank you so much for joining us today. We're so glad to have you. We know that you have been hard at work at Friday Health Plans for the past several years, and you guys have exploded this year. Before that, you were in the tech world, you have some health background, but tell me, how did you get into the healthcare world?
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting story. I was a computer programmer, and I was out there looking for my first job, and I had this, sort of very specific experience around administering a mainframe-based email system when I was an intern at IBM's corporate headquarters in Armonk, New York, when I was in college. And lo and behold, Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center was looking for that very specific skill that very few people in the world had. And so I applied for the job, and I'm sure they looked hard to find someone other than me, but eventually they settled on me, and I started my career at Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center in New York as an IT programmer support person. And that was my introduction into healthcare.
Wow. And from there, you've gone across the country and had many, many different roles. And now tell us a little bit about what you're doing today.
Yeah. So about 7 years ago now, my business partner, Dave, and I left TriZetto after it was sold to Cognizant. So we were, like you, software and service providers in the health plan space. And I had spent about 11 years there learning that side of the business and talking to a lot of the professionals. And it led us to a sort of decision point that the market was moving increasingly towards an individual consumer-based marketplace, both with Medicare Advantage and Medicaid expansion. And, we had a thesis that the individual market would grow at the expense of the group market, what we now call ICHRAs. Back then, we didn't know what would be the driving force, but we had this sense it would happen. And then the ACA passed and was going into production. And the combination of all of those led us to build a health plan. So we started Friday Health Plans, by the way, as Sal and Dave's health venture at the time, but never went live with that working title. And with the goal of, adding just another option, we felt like as long as there were enough good choices that the marketplace would grow and stabilize. And so we were dedicated to the individual marketplace, and it's been 7 years, and we're excited about where we are and where we're headed.
Yeah. And so for those who may not know, we work with you all and we help with your broker portal and your consumer shopping and enrollment platform and your broker shopping and enrollment platform. And that kind of brings us to our topic for today. I know you guys saw a huge jump in your enrollment this year. Congratulations on that. And when you and I first talked about what kind of topic did we want to bring here, you really had mentioned that it's the role that the brokers play in getting consumers the right coverage. So talk to me, why do consumers need brokers?
Yeah, it's such a complex purchase for so many people, and especially as, we see the growth of this marketplace at the expense of our group businesses, right? And for many, many years, somebody just went to work and somebody offered them a benefit. And they didn't have to think much about it. More often than not, they had no choices. They got the product that was given to them. So now they turn around, and because they've entered the gig economy, or their employer no longer offers health insurance, they find themselves in this marketplace, and it is a complex purchase. And they need somebody to help them navigate that purchase decision. And we as plans can certainly do that directly with them. But we find that brokers are oftentimes working in their communities and the best people to help them, with is my provider in the network? Is my drug in the formulary? Is it in at the right tier? Should I get a higher deductible? Because I don't utilize that often and I just want protection. Do I need a lower deductible because I know I'm going to go right away and hit it? And those are such, sort of personal choices and complex enough that we felt like brokers would be the best people to help us distribute this product.
We had the same kind of thought process for a while. We were really trying to simplify it to the best of our ability. And when you take the EDE process and add that into it for the eligibility, forget about needing to know about deductibles and maximum out of pockets and premiums and all of that. Now you need to answer all of these tax questions, and they are incredibly complex. And if you don't have all the paperwork with you, it's overwhelming. And so I've seen it with you, I've seen it with other carrier partners that we have, and even on our site on its own, the brokers really can do that hand holding. That you can only simplify the process so much. And so having the broker really assist with that last little bit, I think has been really helpful. So in this past OE, about how many of your enrollments were done through brokers?
Yeah, well, hot off the presses, as of this morning, we have 308,000 members, and 73% of them are brokered. And that's at the member level, not at the subscriber level. So, really a great outpouring. We expected it to be, at least 60%, and we were pleasantly surprised to see the number come in at 73%. Says a lot about how we work with brokers and their faith and trust in us, which is always reassuring for what we're trying to do.
So talk to me a little bit about that. How do you guys work with brokers? How do you outreach to them? How do you get them to want to partner with you and your plan?
Yeah. So we start, of course, with just having trying to have a highly differentiated product and service that meets the needs of a subset of the community, right? And so that's always job one, is making sure that you're delivering something to the marketplace that it needs. We hire a direct sales force whose only job it is to support brokers. And we put those folks in the field, and we work hard to get the brokers or their firms and agencies appointed with us. We use technology like yours from a broker portal perspective. We use a management software product that allows us to pay our commissions timely and accurately, and to keep the paperwork down. One of the things we've done over the last 2 years is carved out from our Friday Care crew a broker support unit that has its own management team and its own set of people whose only job it is to take phone calls from our broker partners and get them situated, which has really been a differentiator for us. One of the things, I'm an old sales guy, right? After I left Sloan Kettering, I went to IBM's health industry and made a commission for selling. And IBM was very generous. If you made 100%, they would take you on a trip, and if you were better than that, you would get a trip. So we instituted here a top broker event for our top producing brokers. This year, we're going to take almost 70 brokers to a nice resort and wine them and dine them and thank them for all of their wonderful service. So we do all of those things, and of course, the most important one and the last one is we pay them for their service, right? And so we pay at the member level, we pay for renewals, we pay for members, whether they're a SEP or a regular enrollment. If they produce $1 of revenue for us, we pay them their earned commission, and we keep it simple that way. And we have done it that way since we started the business. And I think brokers have really come to appreciate us for meeting our commitment and valuing their contribution to our business.
Absolutely. It's I talk to some of the brokers and I see that it's, well, this amount for renewal, but not for SEP, but only if it's open enrollment. And it gets incredibly complex. So the fact that you're very kind of straightforward and give the information out there is huge. I do have a question. Do you find that your broker engagement varies by region? I know that you're in a variety of states right now. Do you have some that are more heavily broker assisted versus others?
It's gotten pretty consistent, Sarah. We have had noticed that in the past where some markets were just less brokered than others. And I think that was due mostly to participation of the brokers in their particular market. So New Mexico had a lower percentage of brokered business than our Colorado business, but not for anything that we had done. We just noticed that some didn't participate. I think there was a fair amount of hangover from the states that had failed co-ops People entered the market, they did a lot of work, and then they didn't get paid, or they didn't get paid in whole, they only got paid in part. I think some of that is going away. We're seeing, all of that wash through the system. The brands that are, back in the marketplace are brands that are well known and trusted and here to stay. And so I think you're seeing more and more brokers come back to the market. I think the general agents are recruiting and coming back to the market. So whereas we had seen gaps, say in plan year 18 and 19, in plan year 22, there are no material gaps in our broker business.
Yeah, well, I mean, with 308,000 members, there's a lot going on. So another thing you and I had talked about a little bit before this call was just the feedback from members and the overall, I guess, life cycle or experience from members who enroll with a broker versus just on their own. And I found it interesting. I wouldn't have expected there to be a difference, but can you talk a little bit about that?
I sure can. We do a lot of data analytics to get our plan to be where it is. We consume a lot of data. One way we get data is we survey members, right, every year. In fact, we're actively involved in wrapping up our open enrollment survey for the 22 open enrollment season. And in the prior years, what we noticed is while all of our members are satisfied as it relates to the sort of net promoter score ranking system, as compared to the industry, very satisfied. When we carve out just brokered business, we find that number goes up, and it goes up rather materially. And so not surprising, since such a large percentage of our business is brokered, we're getting this great outcome. Our hypothesis is pretty straightforward. It is a complex purchase. The help of a broker puts a member in the most right product, right? And for us, that has meaning, right? We want someone who is already taking a drug or seeing a certain specialist to pick the plan that's most right for them. So if they pick me and they don't see those things, they're not going to be satisfied. Brokers will know that and make sure to ask those questions. And so they are putting their members in the most right product and or service and or business. One of the things we did this year that was fairly differentiating was do all of our work in Spanish. Anything that we do in English, we do in Spanish. So we have, more than a third of our care crew representatives are bilingual and speak Spanish. And so we can handle member calls and broker calls in their native language. All of our printed materials went out in Spanish as well. So brokers were able to sit a person down, and if Spanish was their native language and they could interact in their native language, it made it easier for them to understand the plan design and the doctors and the drugs. And all of that just leads to a better outcome. And so we were able to accomplish all of that with our brokers. So we are seeing a definite return for our investment in our broker channel in the form of customer satisfaction, which we appreciate.
Yeah, I mean, you're in some states right now where Spanish is very much a spoken language. Do you guys have plans to move on to other languages? Or are you going to focus on English and Spanish for the time being?
In the near term, for sure, Spanish and English, but, in terms of community outreach to communities of need, we are always recruiting brokers and providers in communities where there's a large participation of a particular culture, whether that be, Mandarin Chinese or Vietnamese in the past year, Eastern European in some cases. Whenever we see it with some density, we will go about printing material in that regard. If we can find speakers for whom that's a first language or a learned language, we will absolutely do that. But we find that is differentiating, and it always requires us to work with brokers to find those communities, find out what's going to be most meaningful there.
So, the market grew to 14.9 million this year. And obviously you guys had incredible growth this year, but at some point we're going to cap on the ACA, on this individual plan itself. So kind of what's next? I know you had mentioned at the beginning of this call that ICRA was something you were looking at before it had the name ICRA. How's Friday going to move forward, and how are brokers going to help with that?
Yeah. I might actually challenge the first assumption that there's a cap on this. I actually have a different hypothesis, which is, and it might take 2 generations to become real. If you're familiar with the term a BHAG, right, a big, hairy, audacious goal. We have one here, and we think the whole market's going to be individual consumer driven over time. The question is not if, it's when. Right, that we'll continue to expand the tax law so that it's affordable for groups to become subsidized groups of individuals, and that with the stabilization of the consumer market, both on the exchange and off the exchange through channels like yours, that people will find more choices. And why should an employer make one choice for all of their employees who are highly diverse when they can invest the same amount of money and allow a diversity of choice across, a number of plans depending on where their members are. So we are big supporters of the ICHRA concept. We are appreciative that the last 2 administrations both saw it that way and continue to strengthen the ICHRAs. I for one have become a partner too, as you are, to the HRA Council, a coalition of like-minded folks who sees ICHRA as a wonderful choice. What's next for us is we're going to take the Friday brand to as many places as we can get it. There are 50 states and a lot of counties that we're not in, most of them right now, so we have plenty of room to run. We really like this business and think that the market is coming to us. I would not be surprised to find out that 14.9 million is an understatement. The federal government does not do a good job counting off exchange enrollments, and probably has no idea how many of these ICHRA members have actually eroded into the off-exchange individual marketplace. There's a number of people in the non-standard, non-ACA compliant plans, short-term, where those states are more friendly for those sorts of activities. We just see the individual marketplace as the place to be, and one we intend to spend a lot more time.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think when I said that the 14.9 was the cap, I'm thinking more traditional ACA as opposed to the ICHRA business that's coming in. I mean, I've read updates that they're thinking by, I think it was 2029, there'll be 30 million people who are being offered an ICHRA, which is huge. And like you said, we're both on the HRA Council. We're both very passionate about this. WELL itself has affordability calculators that brokers, employers, and health plans alike can use to see if it's beneficial to that small employer. But I truly see it. And from my perspective, one of the big catalysts for ICHRA was the pandemic, because so many companies are now remote and have a distributed workforce. And so while a group plan may be great for everybody who's around headquarters, what about the rest of your employees who are scattered all across the country?
Yeah, believe me, it's a challenge we face. We now have over 1,000 lives that we have to cover, and they're now spread out over 11 states as we continue to build out our brand.
Wow.
And so it is absolutely a challenge we have to think about. Look, I don't know where the cap on the ACA is. It's a very good point. We could certainly see in a hotter job market that the subsidized population shrinks. I do know that we have a legislative challenge of extending subsidies in some way, shape, or form and codifying that. But I could also see it growing, right? Those people are going to end up on a federal subsidy somewhere anyway. And I don't know that Medicaid's the right answer for everybody. And so I would argue it's probably better for people to end up in an ACA plan than to end up in a Medicaid plan in many cases. And I think states and the federal government are going to start looking into this and try and determine as we think about, now having 90 million people on Medicaid and 15 million on an ACA plan, there'll be some real good comparative analysis to be done on where does the government get the best bang for its buck from an outcomes perspective. And I'll be anxious to see what that produces, and whether or not we don't see even the subsidized ACA portion grow at the expense of, say, Medicaid in the future.
Yeah. Well, I don't pretend to be a Medicaid expert at all, but one thing I can guess is that if we're going to be moving any of the Medicaid population to the ACA population, it's going to be with the help of brokers.
Oh yeah, for sure. And it'll be interesting to see if they don't extend the rule. We now know there are some 17 million people by the last estimate that I saw that are on the Medicaid rolls because of the health emergency that is going to end soon. And those folks are going to have to be redetermined. And we're fairly certain not all of them are going to end back up on Medicaid. And so they're going to go looking, they'll go look for a job for sure, but they're certainly going to go looking for a health plan on an exchange.
Absolutely.
Will need the help of a broker. And so, I think this is going to be another year where brokers are going to be busy all year. It's not just going to be open enrollment season. It's going to be all year kind of. And we're already seeing some evidence of that with our first 2 months of SEPs. And so we're thankful for the brokers for continuing to do that work, because it doesn't matter whether it's, January or April or August, there are people who need to find a health insurance product, and we're happy for the help.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And, it's not straightforward. That's kind of the bottom line. We wanted to think that it was, but there are so many complexities, and that's where the brokers can help us.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. It was always a pleasure to get to speak with you. By the time this airs, I will have been out to see you, but I am very excited to get to go see you in person. I can say that we are so excited to get to partner with you and grow with you and help you and your brokers get your plans to your members.
Wonderful. Thanks, Sarah. Thanks for the opportunity to reach out. Looking forward to seeing you soon. Travel well.
Yep. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.